All right, guys. I think we're recording. So I don't know what episode this is. Me and Coach DeBella stopped like 2 or 3 months ago after we did all the Grilly guys. But I've been getting coerced by a lot of people to do the Empire guys. And I was thinking about it today before we started this. I'm like, the reason I like coaching Empire so much is there's so many high-level wrestlers. I get to stay up to date with a lot of good technique. But I also get to build relationships with guys like Matt, who Matt especially is a guy that, has been around for a long time. And it was great watching him grow from a little wise guy to a superstar and now a Division I stud. So if you guys don't know, this is Matt Grippi, and you should know, but 3-time state runner-up, 3-time section champ, correct?
Yep.
Did you have the most wins in Section 1 history?
No, Brian has me beat, and I think Dennis Robin has me beat now. I think I'm third.
Dennis, come on, Dennis. But all right, top 3 in the section win list. Currently an NC State wrestler, Division I. Started a lot of the season last year. Oh, shoot. We're in NC State. Nice. Started a lot of the season last year, had a good year. Beat some good guys, beat some ranked opponents. Was right in there with the guy from North Carolina, O'Connor, who at the time was ranked 1 in the country. Got the first 2 takedowns on him, I believe. Ended up losing the match. It was a good, hard-fought match. Shows what he's capable of. So, Matt Grippi. First thing, Matt, and how we normally started, how did you get into wrestling in the first place?
I guess my family I have 3 older brothers, and they all wrestled. My oldest brother, Joey, started wrestling in, like, middle school, and since then, right when I was born a wrestler, pretty much.
I think it's funny. I remember, DeBellis, I might have told you this before, but when he was real young, and I just got back from Hofstra. It was like 2010, 2011 time. And him and Scott Rodriguez, if you guys don't know, Coach Rodriguez's son, one of his sons, they were running around warming up. And I think at the time, Grippi was doing Askren and Empire. He was doing both at the time. And he wasn't like a bad kid at all. He was a great kid. But he was like saying wise guy stuff. Every time he ran past me, I'm like, who is this little guy? And he was like 3'1", and now he's like 3'7". He got a little
3'1" and tons of fun.
But he was so funny. From then on, I mean, the problem with this is that we can't go too long, but I could probably tell 1,000 stories of Matt Grippi that were really fun and funny. He's a funny guy. But Matt, one thing I wanted to point out, when you were little going through youth, you had success, but I don't remember your dad he was there for everything, but I don't remember him being too hard on you. Like, what was the dynamic of you coming up as a kid through the youth ranks?
Right. Yeah, my dad was honestly the perfect wrestling dad that you could ask for. He was there for everything, but he never pushed me, and in the sense of, like, he never forced me to do something that I didn't want to do. Obviously, here and there, he'd give his take, and he kind of knew his boundary with, like, giving his advice. And my dad never wrestled, so sometimes I'd kind of get a little annoyed and be like, "You never wrestled, you don't really understand it." But he was never that crazy dad that was forcing me to do everything against my will and whatnot. But yeah, my dad was very supportive, always there, and yeah, he was awesome.
Go ahead, dude.
I've been struggling with my own son getting into wrestling practice twice a week. I mean, I had coach talk to him. That's a question that I had for Matt was, you had, it seemed to be the world on your shoulders because you had 3 older brothers that were studs. You're coming up as a little kid, but for whatever reason, it just never seemed to bother you. You just embraced. When I always saw you, you were always fun. I know you were Fox Lane. I had to compete against you for 6 years, and I don't think we ever got a win. No, not even close.
Unless you count me.
What's that?
I said unless you count me.
Well, then we're even.
Now I won't mess with him anymore, and that's on camera.
Yeah. But so Matt, the question is, how did you keep such a, you had your ups and downs in your career, but you seem to always love it. Do you still love it?
Oh, of course. And wrestling especially, I mean, you guys know wrestling's a sport where you could hate it just as easily as you could love it. So, I mean, yeah, I've had my ups and downs, but that's just my personality and the person who I am. I just try to make fun out of every possible situation and always be positive and be goofy and at every second I can. And yeah, I mean, wrestling can be tough, but it could be just as fun as long as depends how you look at it.
it was weird. Even the Greeley kids, when they would come to, our school, they all wanted to hang out with Matt. And, with the state teams, Matt was the leader. I mean, Matt was like, and at whatever group Matt was in, Matt was the guy. It was like.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I like I don't want to say I like the attention, but I definitely feed off of attention and making others laugh
Well, you made everybody comfortable and ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, you're a good person to have on any team.
Right. Thank you.
Well, that goes both ways, right? I think that went, like you said, Coach, with like the club guys and the Fox Lane guys. I mean, Matt was obviously the leader of Fox Lane, but he was a leader with the club as well, especially the fact that he was a really young guy when he started. So by the time he was a junior or senior, myself, and I know I'm speaking for John, but John's expected a lot out of him, not only in the wrestling, aspect, but he was supposed to set the example, right? And he did. But I remember me and John, and then even me and Khalid arguing on who was going to get Matt on the car rides up because we didn't want to get some random 7th grader that we didn't know and like whatever. I'm like, I want Grippi in my car, and I think a lot of times I won that battle a lot of times. Yeah. But so we had a lot of good times. But Coach DeBellis, I have a question for you. Do you remember the first time you heard of Matt Grippi? He was probably pretty young because he was.
Well, I knew the brothers. I knew the brothers. I think I was just starting out. I think, Matt, what year were you in 7th grade?
What was that?
What year were you in 7th grade?
Wow.
Were you
coaching? 2013-ish, something like that.
Yeah, 2012, 2013, yeah.
So you were already coaching, right?
I coached Matt when he was there, yeah.
What I'm saying is you were coaching at Greeley already.
Yes, I was at the club, though, too. I was with Matt since he was in high school, middle school, high school, whatever. So I was with Matt.
Well, when I saw him, I said, "Oh my God, I gotta wrestle this kid 6 years. 6 years. It's 6 against us every single time he steps on the mat. It was 6 against Greeley."
Yeah, well, not every time. His senior or junior year, he wrestled Aaron and majored him, I think.
Yeah, my junior, I don't even know if I majored. I might have beat him by 7, but my junior year.
Yeah, I think Aaron saved at the point. I think he actually told us that in the interview.
Yeah, I remember I think he rode me out like the whole 3rd period too, and I was not happy about that.
You wrestled up though. You wrestled up too.
Yeah,
you wrestled up.
I think you guys bumped him up.
Bumped him up. Yeah, we bumped him.
Really?
Yeah.
But Matt could have been that weight class. Matt was wrestling at 52 at the time, but he could have been 45. Like,
yeah, I wrestled both.
Yeah, it wasn't a weight thing. But at that point, what's crazy? It shows how good Matt is. At that point, by Aaron losing to him by 7, I knew Aaron was the real deal.
My favorite match of Matt, and you're probably going to get to this, Coach, but was the semifinals the year Jacob made it to the finals and he made it to the final. Yeah, that was Matthew was sick as a dog the whole day.
Yeah,
there's a guy in the semis in the last couple seconds.
Yeah, there's a couple good things on that one. We'll get to state soon, but we will talk about. Oh my God, that guy's scary, and I'm not just talking about the looks. That's your dad. We're talking about the looks. But so Matt, youth, how many state championships did you win in youth?
5.
So he's a 5-time youth state champion. He comes into high school as a 7th grader. What place did you take in sectionals? Did you place 7th grade? Yeah, right?
Yeah, I took 3rd.
3rd, then 2nd, 8th, and 9th?
Yeah, 8th and 9th I took 2nd.
So he was a 5-time finalist, 6-time top 3. I would put Matt definitely in the top 5 of best wrestlers ever to come out of Section 1 without the state title. With the state title, he's top 2 in my opinion. But you had, I don't want to say pressure, but like you said, you had won all these state titles. I remember Mr. Duke joking around with you when PJ was trying to get as many state titles as you and stuff like that. But to kind of feed off of what Coach DeBella said, did you feel that pressure when you hit middle school, or were you more like, hey, this is my turn to kind of do my thing, let's do it?
I definitely knew the pressure and like the bar was there, but honestly, I never let it get to me. I don't like to think about that stuff in terms of like pressure and like in a big match. I never let that stuff get to me. And I actually remember, and you said, not on a personal level, but you said, remember you told me, you're like, yeah, Grippi's too dumb to get nervous. And not like, and it's true that like just how I am and my personality. I don't like that stuff doesn't even like come to my head. It's like, and it's so like blatantly obvious that it's like, it should be there that like, I don't even like think about it. And Not that that was like you calling me dumb, but
No, I was gonna say the funny thing about Matt is, and that's what I said about relationships too, right? Like I got close enough to Matt where he would joke with me, I would joke with him. I would say the next couple of Empire guys that we interview, Adam, Grant,
oh, yeah.
AJ, RJ, Camacho, like I had that relationship with them where it was more like family than coaching, I would say.
Right.
But I would now I'm gonna be nice to you and don't let it go to your head. But I wouldn't say Matt is the furthest thing from dumb. Matt is very calculated in what he's doing, and he knows, he knows how, like you said, Coach, what you were saying with his like not getting too nervous and knowing how to kind of relax himself, and he's well aware of how his actions make reactions kind of thing. Like he knows what's going to happen. He knows how to keep his cool. And a lot of kids through a lot of training and sports psychology and stuff like that, they can't figure that out, and that's something that Matt figured out at a very young age, to be carefree and kind of let it loose. And that's why, again, I don't want to jump to States yet his senior year, but that's why when he went out of bounds with like 15 seconds left or whatever it was, I thought he was still going to win. Because he's been there and he's done that. You know what I mean? And he had that kind of mentality. But let's go back into high school now a little bit. What was your first big win, Matt, that you can remember? Like one that you're like, wow. Like, you had big wins that other people probably thought were big wins, but you didn't think was a big win because you expected it. What win was like, holy cow, like I'm there? Like, do you remember a match that stood out?
My 7th grade year at the Shoreline tournament, that was like my first tournament. I was undefeated going to the tournament. I hadn't really wrestled anyone yet, and I beat John Erico in the quarterfinals. And John Erico had went to John's and trained with John, and he'd always beat me up in practice. And he was, I think, a sophomore at the time. So going into that match, I was like, wow, this guy, I don't even think I've gotten a takedown on him in practice ever. And I beat him. And then I remember after that match, me and A-Rod, we were talking, and he was like, hey, like, you're this good. Like, you can do this. And then in the semis, I had beaten Kevin Rodriguez, he was from Portchester. He was a senior at the time. He was like ranked second in the section, and I majored him. And I had the ball rolling. And I was like, oh my God, I could be pretty good. And then I ended up losing to Nick Barbaria in the finals. A pretty tight match. I think it was like 6-3. But that was probably
from North Rockland?
New Rochelle.
New Rochelle, yeah.
New Rochelle.
Yeah, I remember. He came to the club a little bit too.
Yeah.
I don't know if at that time he still was there or not, but I know he was a club guy.
Yeah.
But, go ahead, Coach. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Matt, do you think that John Erico went in there tight and you went in there loosey-goosey? Because there's a lot of pressure on a sophomore who's wrestling a very talented 7th grader.
Right. I mean, maybe.
You feel like you wrestled a great match.
Yeah.
Did he wrestle a great match?
I definitely think he underestimated me a little bit. One being that I was a 7th grader, and two that me and him were pretty close. We were pretty good friends, and
right.
he'd beaten up on me. So I definitely think he probably thought it was gonna be an easy win, and yeah, I would say he definitely underestimated me. He ended up beating me later on in the year, but yeah, I definitely think I kind of got him at a good time.
What was the score then?
That match, the one I won.
Yeah.
I think I beat him 6-2.
Wow.
Yeah.
Coach, one thing I want to touch on with Matt, now they saying that he's a 7th grader and he's beating these guys and he's crushing these guys. When I think of Matt, there's a couple of things I think about. I think about his carefree attitude and, happy-go-lucky, funny guy. He's got some good jokes. And we have some funny jokes with John. And, I might have egged Matt on a couple times. But, but I also think of typical Fox Lane mentality. Because when I was young and I was still in college, I'll never forget this. And that's when Joey, his brother, was on the team, I believe, at Fox Lane. Section 8 and Section 11 had their section championships at Hofstra that year. And I was still at Hofstra. So I remember my dad calling me saying that he was going to go watch the Section 11 finals and some Section 1 and D kids were going to be there. So I went, and at the time I had a good relationship with like Luke Spino, and I knew Sam was a little bit young, but I knew these guys. So I sat with them, I was joking around with them, and they were doing that thing when they say, oh, if you don't do 25 push-ups, you're not going to be state champion. Oh, you lost to that guy. You let that guy take you down? Oh, you suck. Like, things like that. And some people look at it as, bullying or pushing. And it's not, because it's all coming from love, and it's all and it's pushing you, right? And Matt is the one that kept that going for Fox Lane when the Stevens and the other Grippis and Steven Rodriguez and all those guys were gone. And I wish that in our room we could emulate that same mentality where, look, we're there for you, but we're going to call you out on your crap. And they did that. And Matt, as he got older, was that guy. Like him and Johnny Santos, they would say things to that. Matt, can you talk a little bit maybe about that mentality and how you guys thought, like, and how you guys push each other and competed against each other in a sense?
Oh yeah. And I got to thank Coach Rodriguez, A-Rod, for that, because that's like the mentality that he preaches, and I know you're definitely like that as well, and you too, Coach. And it's just I don't know, it's weird because like in my room now, it's the complete opposite. Like if you lose to someone, you don't speak of it, you don't really mention it to them, and maybe sometimes it's a little tense in the room or in the locker room after someone takes a tough loss. But in high school, it was the complete opposite. Like, and I think it was because we were so close with each other that we knew not to take it personally, but at the same time, like you said, it was kind of calling them out on their BS. So if someone got even like taken down in practice, I remember Josh Roush took me down in practice once. He got one takedown on me all year in practice, and he took me down. And you hear A-Rod in the corner, 2, and like Josh Roush like kind of stood up and like put his arms in the air, and that type of stuff. It just adds fuel to the fire. I mean, it's all love and games, but at the same time, I think it's a good competitive aspect. Like, oh yeah, you want to celebrate after one takedown? I know, like there's one story I had in mind that A-Rod always talks about. I think it was with Steven and Luke Spino.
Yeah.
There's actually two. One of them was, I think Luke looked at Steven and said, hey, if you run headfirst in the stop sign, you'll win a state title. And Steven was like, oh yeah, and sprinted right into the stop sign. It's a typical Fox Lane thing. I know I actually watched A-Rod's interview and podcast with you guys, and he mentioned this one, but one thing that A-Rod always told me about that stuck with me was that when Luke was on the pull-up bar, and everyone was like, if you don't do 5 more, you're never going to win a state title. And Luke did 1, did 2, and like the third one, he's like hanging on the bar, like begging, like, please just take it back. Just take it back. And like almost in tears. And I think that mentality has just like started from a long while ago and just kept its way going through. And I mean, I think it's all fun and games. It makes you more competitive, and I think it makes you closer with one another.
I agree. I think people are a little bit too sensitive nowadays, and about certain things. Some people obviously take it too far on certain things.
Are you talking about me?
No, not you. But like, I was around that whole Fox Lane thing, right? Like again, like when Matt was in the club, all those guys were in the club. So it's like I was like in on that, but in on something different. And we added a bit at the Greeley with the Scotty Wims and the Jacobs, and they were able to take stuff like that, But I love our kids now, but I would love to see a little bit more of push each other and not be like, oh, I can't believe this guy said that about me. Like if it's coming from a place of love where they're like, no, we're just holding you accountable for what you want to do. You want to be a champ? This is what you need to do, and I'm going to call you out on that,
Right.
And I think that's a good thing. I don't think that's a bad thing, and I think it's a problem when people are looking at it as a bad thing. I used to get a kick out of them. I used to love it when they would like get at each other and joke around. But I'm going to bounce around a little bit, Matt. So we'll go to your senior year, junior year at States and all that stuff, and Yanni, you wrestled Yanni your sophomore year. What difference do you think it made committing to like club wrestling and stuff like that for your career? Because you were the guy, you were there from a baby on pretty much.
Right. Yeah, it made the biggest difference. I mean, wrestling's a sport where if you don't put time into it and you don't really dedicate yourself to it, you're not going to accomplish ultimately what you want to. And especially Empire, I mean, the resources between the facility, the coaches, and the partners there, it's just better than any other club in the country. And now I'm at a school where I have people all over the country, and I'll hear like, oh, you got your club's at, you guys wrestle in the high school cafeteria. Like we have 6 mats down with a sauna and like dumbbells and all that. And like, and it's just the resources, it's unmatched. And especially wrestling all year round and committing yourself to the sport, it makes the biggest difference.
Now, I could ask you this before to think about it, and you might not have something for this, but I'm curious because, you've been around for so long that you've seen some workouts, I'm sure. Is there one workout at the club that stands out to you, or one or two or whatever that you were that either I did or John put you through that was like torture? Do you remember anything that just was like tough? I love hearing those stories. You know, you got anything that you remember?
I remember, I think it was my sophomore year, and at the old club when we had the ropes, and it was me, Adam Santoro, Jay Albus, and Grant.
Ooh, what a crew!
Yeah, and 4 ropes were down, and I remember you guys put us through. There would be like 5 guys standing in a line, each line, like all fresh. You have to climb a rope and then get a takedown, and then that counts as 1. And then if you give up a takedown, that subtracts 1, and the first 1 to 10 wins. And I remember that was by the third, like you'll get maybe the first 2 or 3, and then by like that 4th one, you have a fresh guy ready to go, and you should know it right when you get off that rope, he's gonna attack you. And that workout definitely sticks out to me the most. That one was brutal.
That sounds awesome.
I mean, the thing that stood out to me on that was not even the work. The workout's tough, obviously, but the list. I know he was wrestling with different people, but the list of people you said were going through just reminds you of the type of partners you kind of had at that club. Like those are hammers up and down, and I'm sure the kids that were waiting to get you guys were pretty freaking tough too. So like, you know, it's stuff like that. I remember Matt as he got older, you know, feeling that and like getting stronger, and like his hand playing got better, and he just kept progressing like the whole time. And like you said, Coach, like there was a lot of pressure maybe on him, but it never stopped him. He kept getting better. To flip it a little bit with club wrestling, do you remember any time that was specifically fun? Because we had a lot of fun, I feel like, on a lot of those trips, and anything stand out to you on that end?
Definitely Pop and Flow is the trip that everyone goes on. It's the most fun.
Yeah.
But honestly, I can't think of one specific time, just because it's always like that. Like when you go to practice, it's a positive atmosphere. Everyone, like, you know, you're walking around joking with some people, but there's the line that you can't cross, and I mean, I definitely crossed that line a bunch. But there's a time where we could joke around, but then all right, it's time to go, and I definitely played with that line a little bit. But I can't.
You know what the problem was? When he would play with the line, it'd be hard for me not to laugh because he was hysterical. You know what I mean? Like, Matt, I'm going to cut you off on one thing, because there's one really funny one that I remember at least. John kicked him out of practice for some reason. I forgot what he did. It was nothing crazy. John was just in John mood. He was upset or whatever. He kicked Matt out of practice. So John would always like give me these tasks, and he was like, take Matt outside and make him hand fight and do stance and motion in the parking lot. I'm like, all right, cool. So we go out there for like 2 minutes. I'm like, Matt, come back inside. So we go back inside. We're in the little weight room. And DeBellis, you remember the old side of the club where the weight room was right by the mat? Yeah. So we were over there. And I told Matt, I probably got Matt in more trouble. I'm like, Matt, grab the bar and lift it like it's the heaviest weight in the world. Didn't make a lot of sounds. So he's in the back and he's going, like with the bar. And John's like, what are you doing? Screaming, yelling. Screaming, yelling and stuff. And I was like, you know, but those times, you know, whatever. He got kicked out of one practice, big deal, but we had a lot of fun. You know, it was a good time. You know.
Yeah, no, like I said, I can't pick one exact moment, just because it's always a good time, and everyone's always joking around, and you know, we also have that side where it's like, all right, now it's time to start working. But yeah, I can't pick one thing, just because it's always fun.
And I think and maybe I'm biased because that's where I've coached at for the last 10 years, but I don't think there's many other clubs that are like that, in the sense where, you know, you have clubs, and we've had kids that have come from other clubs to Empire, and sure, John will have his moments when he's in a bad mood or something like that, and I'm sure I've come in there a little bit, you know, jumpy or whatever, but I don't think there's that many clubs where like that relationship's built. Like everybody in the room cares about the other person. We all joke, we all laugh, but everybody kind of knows that line too, not to cross, right? Like, so if I have a practice of 50 kids in the room, we'll joke, but when I like kind of lay the hammer down, they all kind of fall into line with it too. It's like, it's a weird thing that we have there, where I was talking to David Schreiber about it the other day, that most of our really good wrestlers that have come out of that club are really good kids too. You know, and it's I don't know why that is like that, but Matt's a really good kid. Camacho's a really good kid. AJ, RJ, Jacob Ferrer, all these guys are good kids. Matt Schreiber, you know, our guys, Aaron, they're all good kids, you know, and I think there's something special going on at the club, but it's hard to put a finger on what that is. But there's definitely it's
Anthony Totora. Hard to figure out.
but it's a good like, you know, we all have good relationships, and it's special. And I think when people come in there, they kind of see it, but you can't explain it until you're part of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I agree. I definitely think it's like we're a team, and to call your club a team, I think is like, in my opinion, it's not weird, but to others, it might be like your club is your team. Like, you think of your club as like more of a team than your high school. And I was like, well, one, my high school is my club. Like, everyone from Fox Lane goes to Empire. And two, it's like we're all so close with each other, and we're all friends, and it's just like, I don't know, it's hard to explain. Like, a lot of people from the club have went to NC State, and I, like, for example, like Malikian, I would see Malikian when I was in high school and he was in college, maybe once, twice a year. But right when I got here, it was like it was like no time was missed. Like, it was like I just saw him the other day, you know, and we had that bond immediately. And like me and Camacho, and now AJ and RJ and Ferrer came last year. It's like we had this bond that like other people don't really understand, especially like you said, with like messing with each other, like how I was talking about earlier, how like our team doesn't really like to see like mess around about losses, or they have a bad practice or whatnot, which I can understand to a point, but like that was one major adjustment because, like you said, back in high school with the club, like that's how we were, and it wasn't out of hatred, it was out of love and holding each other accountable. But yeah, I think the overall aspect of considering like your club as like your friends, I don't think a lot of clubs can relate them, especially with the coaches. I think the coaches to wrestler relationships, I think like you guys are closer with the like your wrestlers than any other club coach is with in the country with their wrestlers. And I truly believe that. And when I was in high school, I didn't really get to like understand that until I hear stories about other clubs and how it's like they just go in, practice, and leave. Like, it was no goofing around, no like creating memories and relationships. It was just strictly business.
Yeah, that's actually a really good answer, man. You gave it justice. And it's funny, the whole like, and to go back to your college thing too, I think it's just a little different in college because you guys are all super elite, right? I mean, the club was super elite too, but they were super elite high school wrestlers. When you're super elite Division I wrestlers and you're a top 5 team in the country, maybe people walk a little bit more around eggshells around each other because you're looking to win NCAA titles and things of that nature. I could see it being a little bit different of atmosphere. But I also do think it's a good thing. I remember when I was in school, I mean, Hofstra was no NC State, but we were top 10 a couple times and stuff like that. We definitely got on each other about things.
Could have been if Tommy Ryan stuck around.
Yeah, he was the man. I actually ordered his book, and it's taken 3 weeks to get here. So, Coach Ryan, if you're listening to this popular podcast, send your damn book. But
shout out.
But what I was gonna say is, even yesterday, Coach DeBellis, you'll get a kick out of this. I group chatted Matt, AJ, RJ, and Camacho. Because I didn't put Jacob in because I already interviewed Jacob. It was about the interviews, right? And I was like talking to Camacho, and I was saying, Camacho, you wouldn't forget your roots or anything like that, you know? And he's like, of course not. And, you know, Camacho was nice about it, whatever. Then RJ sent an emoji of 2 men holding hands and goes, what are you guys, holding hands? Like, you know, like little stuff like that, you know? But like for him to be able to say that to me and me to laugh at it and have good conversation back and forth, like that's the relationship we have. Like when I had to move in this house and Kara was 9 months pregnant, AJ and RJ came here to help me get this lady out of here. You know what I mean? Like, they're good kids. Like, it's just how it is. Like, and you know, when Matt's graduated.
It's sketchy, though, to get the lady out of there. What do you?
Oh, well, she lived here. She stayed here 3 months overtime, bro. We had to get her out. But, you know, so stuff like that. But, you know, 10 years down the road when Matt's done with wrestling, I'm still going to talk to him. If he needs me, I'm there, and vice versa, I'm sure. So that's how it works. But, like I said, I don't have Kara's extended thing, so I don't want to stay on this too long. Let's jump to high school real quick. So 3-time state runner-up, which I'm sure is not your favorite thing, but at the same time, it's way better than a lot of people have ever done, better than I've ever done and a lot of people. Your sophomore year, you lost to Yanni, who is probably one of the best, maybe the best wrestler in New York State history. Your junior year, you lost to Pappas, if I remember, Pappas or whatever, and your senior year, Teamer. If you look at those matches, Yanni and Teamer are 2 of the top 10 best wrestlers in New York State history. Pappas was a stud. You know, I wouldn't put him in their category, but he was a stud. And I remember it like yesterday, Matt losing that match, and me and DeBellis going home, and Khalid being funny and joking. He loved you. He wanted you to win.
Yeah.
But it bothered me badly that I didn't want him to talk to me, right? It was one of those things because, again, how close we were.
Mhm.
What lessons did you learn from those 3 matches that stand out to you now as a college wrestler?
Right. To start with Yanni, the biggest thing I learned that hit me right at that time was, all right, I'm not at that level yet. Like there's levels to this, and he is on a whole nother level than everyone. And it's like, you know what? I'm good, but there's people that are way better than me. Like, and there was a big gap. And that's one of the things that A-Rod preached that year, because I lost to Yanni in the Easter State Finals,
Yep,
and he beat me like 17-8, like 18-8, like pretty bad. And the biggest thing was close the gap. Let's close the gap. And in the state finals, I think he beat me 12-5. So I made big gains just throughout the year. And wrestling him, honestly, and this is one thing that I could hold on to in my high school career is, I never won a state title, but I always went after the best guys, and it made me a better wrestler for it. Yeah, I could have went an easier weight class and maybe won a state title, but I went after the best guys, and it made me way better, not only as a wrestler, but just as a person, and being humbled and kind of like embracing that whole mentality and stuff. But I would say for Yanni, definitely biggest lessons, there's people better than you, and you can never be satisfied. With Pappas, I wrestled a bad match, and I don't think it was because of the like being in the state finals that kind of got to me. It wasn't my day, and I mean he wrestled a great match and I didn't. And I mean, if we wrestled 10 times, maybe I win 7 of them, but he beat me on that day, so that's
all right.
you gotta be able to perform at your best always. And then Teamer, it was just a humbling experience, because that match to me was personal. I never made a match personal, and that match to me was personal just because I strongly dislike him. And I mean, it was got to be humble, and he beat me, but I was proud of. I wrestled. I went his weight class on purpose, and I was proud of the fact that I didn't shy away from Corey Teamer or Yanni Diakmahalis. And something that not a lot of people know, my junior year, I went 152, and I wrestled that the whole year. I went down to 45 for Eastern States because Frankie Gissendaner was there, and I wanted to wrestle him. I ended up losing him in the finals there. But Yanni was supposed to be at 52 that year, and he ended up having the double elbow surgeries. And my whole plan was to go 52 again and wrestle him again. Like, that was my whole plan, and he ended up not wrestling that season. But yeah, just overall, just don't be scared of the best guys.
Well, you know what I like what you said there, Matt, is I think all that stuff, as long as you know that, that's going to serve you well, right? Like, I think I've said it to a lot of our guys, and Coach Bellis has said the same. As long as you can look yourself in the mirror and you know you did what you should do in a sense, I think that's more important than state titles, because who's going to remember in 20 years when you're 60 about that state title? Well, my math's off on that, but you know what I mean. Like, who's what? And one thing I want to mention about your senior year is I really believe still to this day that you could have beat Teamer. And if you see him in college, I think you could beat him. Like, he's a great wrestler, no disrespect to him, but I think you could beat him. Like Coach Sabellis mentioned earlier, you were sick as a dog that day. And I know you're not trying to build in any excuses, but I'm the one that wrestled with you Thursday night. Or Friday. And I remember you telling me you're not feeling so good. I'm like, let's just wrestle, let me feel you out a little bit, feel you good. And I kind of like let off the gas a little bit, hopefully to help your confidence, right? But I felt you, and I knew you were sick by how you were moving. I'm like, this kid does not feel right. Like, he does not feel like the regular Matt Grippi. And with all of that still happening, you were able to make it to a state final with that Cropman kid was no joke. That kid was tough. And I think did he win a state title the next year?
I think he lost in the finals, but I think this past year, I think he just won.
He's a stud. The kid's a stud. And Matt being sick as a dog, he found a way to win. And winners find ways to win. And it might have been a little bit too much of behind the 8-ball kind of thing against Teamer, who was super talented when you're not feeling your best, when you're not at 100%. But being able to get that when you were 2-time state finalist at that time, the pressure's on. Everybody's expecting you to get to the finals again. And to get that takedown with that little of time and not to miss a step, it shows your personality. And I see there's 3 minutes and 50 seconds here, so I don't want you to get cut off, but I want to kind of, you're going to have last words here, Matt, but, you know, I think that mentality, as long as you're in the right room, from what I hear, Coach Papalizio is unbelievable. Assistant coach are unbelievable. You have the great partners. You have the right mentality. You have the guts to do it. You know, as long as you really want it, I think the sky's the limit of what you do on the next level. Like, I wouldn't be surprised to see you on that podium a couple of times and possibly competing for an NCAA championship. I mean, the guy, the weight class above you is probably the number 1, number 2 ranked guy in the country, you know, in Hayden Hidley. So, you know, you're there. I can't wait to see you succeed. We're all rooting for you, regardless if you're a Fox Lane guy, you're an Empire guy first in my mind. So we're really excited. Coach D, you got anything from real quick, and then Matt can have last words.
Yeah, Matt, it's been a pleasure knowing you for all these years and watching you just kick ass. You know, we were always rooting for you, especially in Eastern states and states. Not against us, but it didn't really matter. But congratulations on a great career so far, and I'm sure you're going to really kick some butt, you know, at NC State. We'll come down and see for sure.
Yeah. If we get Jacob, listen, if we get Camacho, AJ, RJ, Matt Grippi, and Jacob Farrer in the lineup for one dual meet, I will fly down to North Carolina for that match.
Anywhere. We'll go anywhere.
Yeah. But go ahead, Matt. You got anything else before we wrap this sucker up?
No. Just thank you guys for the kind words. It means a lot to me. But to go off of one thing you said, when me and you wrestled on that Thursday, I remember I had nothing, and I remember I asked you, I was like, how do I feel? And you're like, you feel stronger than I've ever felt you before. I remember you were kind of like I don't want to say lying to me, but just trying to, like you said, build my confidence up. And I mean, I kind of saw right through it because I knew how I felt. But like little things like that I don't think a lot of coaches do. And the things you guys do for your wrestlers, a lot of coaches don't do. And I don't think they have the relationships that I have with you guys that like wrestlers across the country have. And I really believe that. And I think that just makes you a better wrestler, a better person. And those are relationships that you can hold on to forever. So I want to appreciate you guys and everything you guys have done for me.
Thanks, Matt. We appreciate that. I'm going to stop recording and stay on for a second if you can hang on. You're the man, though. This is a lot of fun.
Good.